Good morning. This is Kelly Hall, President, CEO of the Longview Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Kilgore and Tyler Chambers, we appreciate you joining us this morning. I'd like to begin with a few housekeeping items. First, the webinar is being recorded and will be made available online at www.longviewchamber.com. We will also be providing these recordings to the Kilgore and Tyler Chamber so you can have access. For those online, you will receive an email later today from Stephanie in my office with a link to listen to this program again or share with others. Next, there are a couple of features I'd like to make you aware of. Please find the chat and questions icons. You can type in both features to the organizer. The purpose of chat today is to make the organizer aware there are issues with the broadcast. The question feature is for you to ask questions of the presenters throughout the presentation. Presenters will be answering questions when both the presentations have concluded. I will ask the submitted question and direct it to the intended speaker. Lastly, you will be muted throughout the presentation. It is important for me to share that my team and I are thinking of you during this difficult time. I recognize this is a painful season and our business community is looking for answers. We are in uncharted waters, and while we don't have all the answers, we do have access to experts in specific areas that can provide you with a place to start. Today, we are blessed to have three experts. We will open with our Senator, Bryan Hughes. He will bring us the state perspective as he knows it today. He will be followed by Jason Petersen, Senior EVP with Austin Bank, and then Dave Shelmire, Director with the UT Tyler Longview SBDC. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to you, Senator Hughes. Thank you.
Kelly, thank you. And I'm just Bryan Hughes here. Glad to be connected with everyone this morning. There's so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And again, good morning. Bryan Hughes here. Glad to be connecting with everyone.
Just like with everything, we have a little technical difficulty, so we are going to move ahead. Jason, are you with us on the line?
Yes, ma'am, I am here. Kelly, did we lose you?
Senator, go ahead.
Good morning, Kelly. Are we live? Hey, Bryan Hughes here. Thank you guys for including me this morning. I know it's a strange time for everyone, and it seems like there are more questions than answers. It would be easy for us to get discouraged at a time like this, but the good news is everything we need is available to us. And so we're blessed to live where we live. And so I want to give you just an overview of where Texas is, where our region is, as we move forward together in this thing. Over the last week or so, my team and I have been just trying to sort through all the information that's out there. A lot of calls with the governor, lieutenant governor, the White House, the CDC, all kinds of public health and emergency management folks. And we're trying to pick up information we can pass on. But more significant than that, we're taking questions we're getting from local folks and also solutions and sending those back to the feds and to the state so they can be disseminated. And so we spend a lot of time just finding solutions and needs. Someone will call us and they'll say, hey, we've got a client that can manufacture some masks. What kind do we need? Where do we send them? And so we try to match them up with the right folks at the state or locally. And so a lot of people are at work. You know this. A lot of people are at work to get us through this, and we have a lot of reasons for encouragement as far as that goes. Our current status in Texas, of course, these numbers are changing, but the best numbers we have indicate 715 cases in 65 Texas counties. In our region, we know of cases in Bowie County, Cass County, Gregg, Lamar, Morris, Rusk, Smith, and Upshur counties. Now, as you know, around the country. Some states, even in the last few days, have moved towards statewide shelter-in-place orders. 17 states now have those orders in place. That's gone up pretty dramatically in the last few days. Then 11 states have partial statewide orders. That is where a specific county or counties have put orders in place. And of course, that's the situation Texas finds herself in. A number of our counties in Texas have put these orders in place, and that's also been growing. As of a few days ago, Dallas County was the first one, but since that time, again, that's increased a fair amount. The governor so far has left it up to individual counties how they're going to respond to that. But right now, in Texas, Bell County, Brazos County, Cameron, Dallas, Denton, El Paso, Galveston, Gregg not yet. Gregg is under a voluntary shelter in place, and hopefully it'll stay there. But then Harris, Hidalgo, Hunt, Lampasas, Lubbock, McLennan, Rockwall, Tarrant, Travis, and Williamson under some kind of a stay-at-home or shelter-in-place order. Of course, even under those orders, folks are able to generally go out for food, and the definition of essential industries is being defined pretty broad in most of those places. And so that's good, because we do have to, at some level, keep things moving and keep things going. Now, Governor Abbott has been encouraged by many to implement a statewide shelter in place, and he has resisted that so far, leaving it to local discretion. And I'll say, from my part, I and many others have encouraged the governor not to implement a statewide shelter in place. We understand the measures put in place thus far, but to go from this to shutting down even more businesses, the question is, how much we would gain from that in terms of stopping the spread of the virus versus how much we would bear, what kind of cost, what kind of effect that could have on the economy to almost completely shut things down. So that's where we are. And again, our local leaders, as well as the governor, have to weigh all these things and make these decisions. But that's where we are right now. Of course, there are reasons for encouragement. You know that. My goodness, the way people are coming together, the way people are doing more than they have to do. First responders, healthcare workers, teachers who were at home and who were online and on the phone, encouraging other teachers and parents and students and helping them, and businesses. We are seeing the best of American capitalism, aren't we? When businesses are turning to just charity and taking what they've gained, what they've been blessed with, and then at their own sacrifice, giving to their employees, giving to their neighbors, to be distributed. It's pretty exciting to see. And also, we're seeing, much like World War II, when companies that went from making refrigerators to making tanks, and from radios to machine guns, we're seeing the same thing happening as industry is responding and making the medical supplies we need and all the other things we need for daily living. We are blessed with a great supply chain, and even though we're seeing grocery store shelves empty during the day, they're getting replenished overnight. Some items are tougher than others, but even there, the market is responding. So there's reason for encouragement. We don't know exactly what the next steps will be. Again, there is pressure on local governments and state governments to implement further some kind of a stay-in-place, a shelter-in-place, or stay-at-home order. But for now, for most of Texas, and certainly for our immediate area, what we can do is, of course, the most important thing we can do is to follow those social distancing guidelines. All the experts agree that the number one way to stop this is that social distancing that each of us can practice. And of course, beyond that, we're also under the order for no gatherings of 10 or more. And as you know, our public schools are closed right now, but again, education's still going on. And of course, colleges are closed. And right now, unless you're a dine-in restaurant or a gym or a bar, generally speaking, businesses are allowed to remain open so long as they can comply with those social distancing guidelines. You know this. I know many people on this call are trying to do that as folks work from home, and then folks that need to come in to the workplace who can do it safely. Many companies have implemented systems like checking people's temperature before they enter the premises. Of course, extending space between workstations, and hourly, or at least multiple times during the day, disinfecting workstations and areas. And if we do these things, then even under this current status, we can still operate safely. And again, we can keep the economy going while we fight this disease. So that's a snapshot of where we are. I'll tell you, I'm just so proud to get to represent folks in this part of the world. It's a special place. And daily, even hourly, we hear more stories about people volunteering, people giving that don't have to give, just doing more than they're expected to do to get through this. And so that's where we are. We're encouraged. All the resources we need for this fight are available to us. Many of us were encouraged to hear the president suggest that this will not last. That is to say, the stay-at-home orders, the limits on the economy, that this will not last as long as some experts had suggested. He's gotten criticized and praised for that, and I'm sure that's true everywhere. You may have also heard Lieutenant Governor Patrick on national cable TV not long after that saying, hey, I'm someone who's in the risk group. I'm 70 years old, and I know there are risks, but I care more about my children and my grandchildren and their economic future, to the point that I'm willing for us to move forward. Let's open things back up sooner rather than later, keeping those risks in mind. So these discussions are taking place. Our leaders are hearing from business about the harm this really could cause if we have to stay in a slowdown or even a more restricted situation for too long. So that's the status. We're doing our best to listen to folks, pass information on, sift through information we get from the state and the feds, and send it back on. We're trying to communicate on social media and email, and I would encourage anyone to please check our social media platforms. Also, feel free to email us. It's Bryan, BRYAN .Hughes, HUGHES, at senate.texas.gov. Our phone number in Austin is 512-463-0101, and that's being routed around the state as our people are working from home, many in the district and many in the Austin area. So we're proud to represent you and so proud of all that you're doing. And we're going to get through this. By God's grace, we're going to get through this together and quickly.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate you taking time this morning to be with us. Next, we have Jason Petersen, Chief Lending Officer with Austin Bank. Jason, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and thank you very much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and again, thank you for asking me to speak here today. I know everyone listening is very busy and may have specific questions to their situation, so I thought I would be brief, but hopefully informative. You know, as it's been stated, these are unique and challenging times for everyone. Excuse me. You know, there is no playbook or roadmap on how it'll end, when recovery will start, and how will we recover. I know from our standpoint, Austin Bank, we actually reached out to some banks in Houston, to look at them at their disaster plan when they had the Hurricane Harvey. And, you know, that only lasted about 2 weeks, and this certainly is going to last longer. So, you know, we're searching, just like everybody else, ideas on how to help the customers. You know, we're very fortunate in East Texas that we have a strong, well-capitalized community banks that are part of the community, that are there for their partnerships. You know, I talk to lots of bankers every day, and you know, they all tell me this is a partnership, and they're going to be there for their customers. You know, from a banker perspective, you know, we've got customers and we have regulators, and you know, a lot of times regulators dictate what we can and cannot do. But what I want to tell everybody, that the regulators are working with banks so that we may assist the customers and communities that are affected by COVID-19. You know, they recognize that the efforts to serve our communities is a long-term interest of both the bank and the communities and the borrowers. You know, it's an important part of our financial system. You know, some of the actions that the regulators have provided to us to give our customers is such as offer payment accommodations. And you say, well, what's a payment accommodations? You know, they said we can defer or skip payments, extend due dates, and then of course, when it starts to recovery, you know, easing terms for the new loans to affected borrowers. Probably, I don't know who your bank is, but most banks are being told they can defer payments up to 90 days initially. I know there's some discussion as far as 6 months, but regulators are really wanting us to only go 90 days and then look again in 90 days. So what are banks going to require from you? And this is probably going to be consistent bank-wide or, across the banks, because this is what's coming from regulators, just based on the complexity of your loan or your needs. But most customers, when they request deferring payments, they're going to have to be current at that time, and current being 30 days, less than 30 days. So, if you're experiencing trouble, don't wait till it gets past 30 days. Reach out before you get 30 days past due. We're going to be required to show that the business was affected by COVID-19. So how would you do that? Maybe like if your sales the prior month were 50,000 and they're now down to 5,000. Just some basic stuff that we can document the files and show the regulators, hey, they were affected. And then some bankers may ask for a recovery plan or a budget. Again, that's probably based on the size of your needs and your requirements, but we may require a budget or a recovery plan, and probably ascertain what the collateral value is. That's what our concern of a lot of banks right now is that probably the collateral today, real estate, if trying to sell something today would be hard to sell right now, probably for the next 60 days. So we'll try to ascertain some type of value. And probably the best advice I could give anybody with Austin Bank or with another bank is stay in contact with your banker. Don't hide from them. A lot of people who've never experienced financial difficulties before now are going to experience it, and we expect it. And we've been in contact with our customers, and I'm sure your banker's been in contact. But just keep that dialogue open, what you need, what you're seeing, your problems. It's a partnership, and we just need to communicate. Kelly, I think I'm going to end there, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jason. And for those that have joined us, we want to say thank you for joining us. Please know that the presentation will be made online at the Kilgore Chamber, the Tyler Chamber, and the Longview Chamber. Next, we have with us Day Shelmire. Day is the director of the University of Texas Tyler and Longview for the Small Business Development Center. Day, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Kelly. And Kelly said, my name is Day Shelmire. I'm the director of the UT Tyler Longview Small Business Development Center. And with me today is my senior business advisor, Virgil Connor. I have two presentations to share with you today. I want to put everything in context. I want a short presentation on the Small Business Development Center and what we offer small businesses out there. Then I'd also like to go over the most recent SBA presentation that is also found actually on the Longview Chamber website, and I will show you how to get to that. But I'm going to go over some of the slides there and give you some additional details on those slides for those small businesses that are needing to apply for an SBA economic injury disaster loan. So without further ado, let me dive into the SBDC part of our presentation. So for those of you who don't know what an SBDC is, our mission is to provide at no cost business advising and consulting services to entrepreneurs and small business owners in order to help local small businesses start, grow, and thrive. And we cover Gregg County, Harrison, Marion, Panola, Rusk, and Upshur counties. There's a Small Business Development Center located in Smith County that covers the counties over in that direction. There's another one in Athens that covers small businesses there. So wherever you are, you can go to the small business, the SBA.gov website, and find your local Small Business Development Center. So how are we able to do this? So we're part of a national grant program, which it's administered by the SBA. We're an SBA resource partner. So we're funded in part by the SBA, state government, obviously that's the state of Texas, and college or university. In our case, it's UT Tyler over here in Longview. In Smith County, it's TJC. In Athens, it's Trinity Valley Community College. So we're staffed by seasoned entrepreneurs and business people. We all have business experience. There's over almost 1,000 SBDCs across the country. There's 60 in Texas alone. Almost every single county in the country is covered by an SBDC. So if you have friends and family that have small businesses that are struggling elsewhere across the country, they have a small business development center that they could go to for advice and consulting services free of charge. This is a sampling of some of the things that we do. We help businesses with financial projections and feasibility studies, business plan development. You can read the list. One of the things I will say, if you're interested in any of the information on these slides, feel free to take a picture with your cell phone or screenshot or whatever. I'm going to be going through this fairly fast. But just as Jason Petersen at Austin Bank said, you know, they're going to require some information from you. If you need a bank loan, we can help you generate projections, feasibility studies. We can help you package your loan for the bank. Anything that you need business-wise, we can help you with that. You just have to give us a call. So here's some small business statistics. I want to put this in perspective. Why are small businesses so important in this country? So there's over 30 million small businesses that generate roughly 50% of the gross domestic product. Small businesses in this country employ 60 million people. It's almost 50% of the workforce. So, and 40% of the private sector payroll. So you can see right there at a glance, number one, small businesses are small. You know, roughly 2.5 employees in a small business, but they make up 50% of the GDP. That's why President Trump is paying so much attention to small businesses right now. Small businesses in an economic downturn are usually the first to feel the effects, and we've got to get our small businesses rolling again. And small businesses are important because they do create jobs. They're very nimble. In an economic downturn, they're usually the first to lose jobs, but when things start turning back up, they're usually able to create jobs more quickly. Obviously, they spark innovation, provide opportunities for individuals for financial success, and then they also supply and support our major industries. So they're a critical component even in our major industries. If small businesses suffer, our major industries suffer as well. So we're all part of the same economic sphere here. So what's the definition of a small business? And you're going to need to know this in order to apply for SBA loans. If you're curious if you're a small business or not, there's strict definitions of what a small business is. You can find them on the SBA website, but they're defined by what's called the CFAR. Every business is assigned a NAICS code based on your primary NAICS code. Definitions are unique to each NAICS code, as you can see over there. I've highlighted here. So a florist, that's the florist NAICS code right there. And a florist, any florist under $8 million in revenues, this column is a revenue column, is considered a small business. You look over here at fuel dealers, that's the NAICS code. They are judged as a small business by the number of employees. So it differs for every NAICS code, but you can find your NAICS code at census.gov. And to determine, again, whether your business qualifies as a small business, you can go to SBA, to this website right here, and find out if you qualify as a small business. So here's what we're telling small businesses right now. First and foremost, be proactive, not reactive. Now is when you need to start being proactive. And just like Jason Petersen at Austin Bank said, go now and introduce yourself to your banker if you haven't talked to him in a while. Be proactive. Talk to your banker, landlord, suppliers, about how this will affect your current lease, your loan, your inventory. All those things need to be under discussion. We're actually getting a lot of calls from real property managers because already they're getting calls from their leasors talking about lease payment deferments and that sort of thing. So everybody's being affected by this. Keep your financial records up to date. That's critically important. And one of the things that we notice out there across the board, small business owners. Some are really good at it, some are not. But that's something that the SBDC and our business advisors can help you with. If you don't have all your ducks in a row in terms of financial statements. Document the business impact of this downturn. That's going to be very important if you're applying for an SBA loan. You have to document this impact for your SBA disaster loan. Another thing that we've been telling folks is, I know it's very hard out there. Payroll is always one of your largest expenses, but, if you can, resist that temptation to start laying off people wholesale. If you have to, there are resources out there at the Texas Workforce Commission website for your employees to give them guidance. But again, sometimes it's more expensive to lay off vital employees when you have to rehire them in the future. And again, seek advice. It's a proven fact that businesses that seek advice from an expert, be it an SBDC advisor, CPA attorney, whatever, have better chances at success, better success rates out there by seeking advice. So get on the phone. Even Uncle Fred, who's a successful entrepreneur, is an expert. So here's where you can reach us. There's our phone number. There's our website. Go ahead and take a picture of that or a screenshot if you need to. I'm going to move on to our next presentation here. This is where, if you want to follow along, this is where you can find the presentation I'm about to share with you. It's at the Longview Chamber website. It's under the COVID-19, under National Resources, and then it says Webinar Material. That's the latest and greatest of the SBA presentations on this next subject. So again, before I move on, here's contact information. The SBA Disaster Loan Hotline phone number is at the top. That's the main number. If you have any questions about applying for economic injury disaster loans, and the disaster loan application is right there, disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA. All right, I'm going to move on to the next presentation. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because it is only 65 pages. I'm basically going to cover some of the changes to these slides and to point out some of the things that you need to know. One of the things that the folks at the SBA told us is every small business should apply for one of these loans. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But so here we go. So businesses that are eligible to apply, businesses are directly affected by this disaster, and other businesses that are directly related. And they will only cover economic injury, not buildings. This is not a disaster like you see in a hurricane where buildings are destroyed. Here's the criteria. They're going to be looking at, and one of the things I wanted to point out, these are loans that are directly between the U.S. Treasury and the borrower. There will not be a bank involved in these loans. So the SBA will be looking at credit history, repayment ability, and eligibility. The eligibility will be based on physical location. The entire country is a disaster area. Credit scores will be looked at. And one of the criteria they're going to be looking at is credit available elsewhere, which is simply business cash. So if you get turned down for one of these loans, it's because the SBA is looking at your business cash and has made the determination that you have enough cash available to get you through this disaster. Just because you get turned down for one of these loans doesn't mean that you'll be turned down for a loan by a bank either. So look for all your resources. You can qualify for up to $2 million in loans, and that's aggregate per borrower. The loans are not intended to replace lost sales or profits. What they're looking for is the difference between your normal cash flow and your normal expenditures. That's what will be loaned. Probably they're estimating about 6 months worth of working capital is what they're probably going to loan you. You can't ask for a loan amount. It will be determined by the SBA. Economic injury loans over $25,000 will require collateral. They're not it'll be business property only, not your personal real estate. What kind of businesses should apply? Here's the slide that'll tell you this. And basically, the SBA is saying all businesses should apply. And the reason being, again, it's directly from the U.S. Treasury, no bank involved. And the reason why all small businesses should apply is that there's no cost to apply. There's no application fee. There is no obligation to take the loan if you get offered a loan. There are no prepayment penalties if you take the loan and decide to pay it off 2 months later. The maximum unsecured loan amount of the loans are $25,000. And you can have existing SBA disaster loans, but the loans will not be consolidated. Basic filing requirements. The second bullet there, this requirement has been waived. And again, I just wanted to say that everything that you see on this presentation, the details may be changing. And so just keep coming back or ask the questions. It will probably not become more stringent. The details will become more beneficial to small business borrowers, probably. Loans under $500,000 will not require a tax return at the application of these loans. Additional filing requirements, that first bullet up there, talking about including complete copies of tax returns, that has been waived for now. One of the things they wanted to let everybody know is that they will be accepting paper applications, but it will slow the process down. The web portal application process will definitely be the fastest process for applying for a loan. One of the things to note here, these are just the ineligible entities. There are aquaculture enterprises are eligible. They are okay. You'll see the SBA Customer Service Center. This is the same as that hotline number that I put up here. And there's also an email address there. The best place to get information on your loan and applying for a loan will be at this number and will be at this email address. The SBDC business advisors are here if you hit some stumbling blocks. But I just want to and the SBA wants you to know they're getting hit by huge call volumes. Their website is dropping out occasionally. Just be persistent. I've heard a couple of people who've successfully gotten through the loan process. They've done it at 2 in the morning. So we are here to help you collect the information if you don't have it, that you'll need to upload to the SBA. That's where we fit in. You'll also be, once you get your loan application completed, you will be assigned a case manager. So anyway, these are assistants from SBA partners. That's us. So you see there in Tyler, I know there's a SCORE chapter there, but Small Business Development Center, business advisors are here to help you through this. I just want to also let you know that existing disaster loan payments will be, if you already have one in place, will be deferred through December 31st of this year. You won't have to make any payments on that. New loans, if you get a new disaster loan payment, you will not have to make payments for 12 months. So make sure you've completed all your filing requirements before you submit your application. You can save the application mid-process to finish later, so you don't have to do it all at once. If you're denied a loan, you have 6 months to provide new information and submit a request for consideration. If you're made an award of a loan, you have 6 months with which to accept it. So there's no questions at this time. I'm going to move on to the second part of this, but I will say that one thing to note is that interest accrues only on money dispersed. So if you don't take this money, you're not having to pay interest, and you don't have to take all of the proceeds of whatever reward that you get. You can take half of it, or you can take none of it. So there's no harm, no foul if you decide to apply for a loan and get either declined or get accepted for a loan. It will not, there's no harm, no foul. I'm going to run through these slides because there's a lot of them. I just wanted you to feel familiar with what you're going to see online when you apply for a loan. I will be making a few comments here and there. So again, I'll be kind of blowing through these. These are some of the things that you're going to be seeing when you register. One of the things you need to note is that the SBA cannot retrieve your password. So write it down somewhere. They don't keep it on file. So if you lose your password, you're going to have to start over. So just going to keep going through this. Private, just want to make note here, private nonprofits must provide tax returns at the application process. Small businesses do not. That has been waived for now. So I'm going to keep going through here. One of the things to note here is that everything noted with a red asterisk is mandatory information. You have to fill out all those fields. And again, as you're going through this process and you're having a problem, first thing you need to do is either email the SBA or call that hotline number for simple questions about how this operates. Where the Small Business Development Center business advisors fit in is if you need projections, if you need financial statements and that sort of thing. We can help you collect this information. So again, I'm going to keep blowing through here. Let me get to the tax return page. The tax returns, again, I want to make this clear, are not required at filing for small businesses. They might be required at a later date. I'm going to go to the home and personal losses page. So again, here the answer to this question here is no. This is an economic injury loan, not a personal property loss page. Here's where you select your state for the declaration. Let me go to Form 5C, the disclosure statements. And this is necessary to fill out. One of the things, the disclosures, bankruptcies and felonies are not showstoppers for you. I just want to make that clear. Just because you have a bankruptcy on your record and a felony, you can still apply for a loan. You can still get accepted for a loan. It just will require you to fill out more paperwork, and we can help you with that. In this section right here, again, this box right here for applying for these loans. This is your spot to state your case. You need to be able to, be clear for the SBA that you cannot do business and you need a loan to pay your bills and your employees. So let me get down to the application submission confirmation. At this point, you will receive an application number. And the SBA wanted everybody to understand that this is your golden ticket. In addition to your login information, you need to keep this application number. And the easiest way to get hold of somebody, when you get to the hotline, you need to ask for your caseworker. That's another term that you need to remember. Your caseworker, and give them your application number. So again, with that, this is the end of my presentation. Again, you can find this. Let me go back to this so to make sure that you know exactly where to find this information. This presentation is found on the Chamber website under COVID-19 National Resources and the webinar material. And this is, again, the SBA hotline number. This is, again, the website for applying for a loan. And if you need any help filling out additional forms, if you need any help with your business in any other way, please give us a call or email us at the Small Business Development Center. And with that, Kelly, thank you so much for inviting us to be here, and thank you for your attention, and good luck to everyone out there.
Thank you, Day. And at this time, I'd like to turn the call over to Stephanie, who will be taking care of directing questions that have been submitted. Stephanie, the platform is yours.
Thank you. The first question we have is for Jason. And the question asks, what records do I need to have for my banker?
If they don't have anything, current financials within the last 12 months, you probably need to bring that with you. And if some documentation of how COVID-19 affected you. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of hotels that gone from 80% down to 5% occupancy. So just some type of documentation that shows that you've been affected.
Great, thank you. And then our next questions are for Day with the SBDC. And the first one asks, what is considered an acceptable credit history to the SBA?
Now, as far as a credit score, they will not give us a definitive credit score. And, obviously there's with banks, it's a little more defined than that. We tend to tell people that 650 is kind of a borderline score for a bank, and Jason could probably answer that better than I can there. But the SBDC, even if you have a 550, 500 credit score, which is considered unbankable, essentially, they will look at it. Don't let your credit score keep you from applying for one of these loans.
Great. Another question for Day. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just going to say, Stephanie, I know at Austin Bank we don't credit score. We actually looked at the credit history, so we don't really consider the credit score. So anyway.
Okay. Another question for Day with the loans. Are there any stipulations that a company has to retain their employees in order to have the disaster relief loans? I know there's a lot going on with employees and making those decisions. So is that one of the stipulations?
I have not heard that that's a stipulation. However, that's certainly one of the things that I believe the SBA will look at in terms of working capital. If one of the reasons that you need working capital is so that you don't have to lay off employees. So I think they will take that into strong consideration, because obviously the federal government does not want our small businesses, laying off employees.
And we do have a note here that the disaster loan SBA Gov website is down under maintenance. Someone went to check. So just make sure, I think Day had mentioned it, they're overloaded a bit. So just make sure you're checking back on that. Another question says, I'm hearing of grants and credits available related to this disaster relief. Are they there, and how do you apply for those? I'm not sure. Day, if you would know, or Jason, you can chime in.
This is Day, and I don't know of any special grants or anything like that. I do know that other departments of the government have their own disaster relief programs going on. Some of them, like the Treasury Department, Department of Labor, you might want to check their websites. I know there's going to be tax credits coming in the future that will help with this. But again, you'll have to go check directly on their websites for information there. And your CPA, bookkeeper or CPA would probably have that information as it becomes available.
And I'd like to say the same thing. I know the banks have heard the same thing about some grants and so forth, but we have not been provided any procedures or how to get to that money yet. Now, I would assume, I think it may have been voted on last night, some of that information will start trickling out in the next day or two.
Great. And Day, you mentioned that this includes nonprofits, but are there certain types of nonprofits? Some have heard that some types are not eligible?
I knew I was going to get asked that question, and I meant to look this up before, but if the private nonprofits are eligible, by default, I guess that means that public nonprofits are not eligible. So again, I will go get a better definition of that when we get off of this call. And if anybody has a question, feel free to call us at the SBDC.
Great. And along those lines with the SBDC, are you also doing face-to-face meetings, or do you have any alternatives with all the virtual and social distancing, or how can people set up meetings with you guys?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I know that we are not taking face-to-face meetings right now. We are all still in the office here in Longview. We have volunteered to come in against the mandate, but not sure what that means. But anyhow, we are here. We're taking voice calls or Zoom meetings online. Now, as far as small business development centers in Athens and in Tyler, you need to call them. I know that they are talking with customers. They are not at the office right now. But anyhow, we're here. We're available.
Great. Next question, again for Day with the SBA disaster loans. Is that a part of the government stimulus package or something that is separate?
Well, economic injury disaster loans have always been a part of the SBA disaster loan package group. They've always gone hand in hand with some localized disaster like tornadoes, hurricanes, that sort of thing. This is the first time it's been a nationwide declaration. So this is different. And yes, it's part of the stimulus. It has to be, because there's a lot of money that's going to be flowing into the economic injury disaster loans.
And part of those loans, you can correct me or comment on this, is why our governor had to declare the state of emergency, correct? So that the SBA could be able to provide those loans?
That is correct. I'm glad you asked that. So in order for anybody to be eligible, they have to be located inside of a declared disaster area. It's either countywide or statewide. So the state had to declare a disaster emergency, which occurred last Friday. There were some delays in that happening, but state by state, states were declared disaster zones. And I believe by now, every state in the union has been declared a disaster zone. There may be a few lagging, but this, I believe, will be our first national disaster that the SBA will be working on. That's why everything's overwhelmed right now. And, midnight tonight might be the best time to make a phone call or get on the application website.
And we have one additional question for the loan. Is it solely working capital, or can small businesses apply for an actual loan that just in general a little bit separate from the disaster funds?
No, you can request a disaster loan if you're in a disaster area that's been hit by a hurricane, tornado. Those loans are still available for whatever previous disasters have been declared localized. These economic injury disaster loans are only for working capital, not to replace your profits, not to replace buildings and that sort of thing, only for economic injury. And that you'll have to prove to the SBA in order to get these loans. And their formula is pretty simple. They're looking at the difference between your normal cash flow from your business activity and the normal expenditures from your business activity. And they will loan you, and they're thinking it's going to be around 6 months worth of that difference. So you have to prove it. You'll have to come up with your financials to show that. Those are things that we can help you with at an SBDC. Is coming. If you don't have them already with a CPA, we can help you put those together.
Great. So that is all the questions that we have received. We will send the contact information for the presenters in the follow-up email. So I'll send it back over to Kelly for the closing.
Thank you, Stephanie. I would like to thank our presenters for taking the time away from their day to help us think through next steps and prepare for the future. One of the roles your chamber plays is to help create an economic environment that allows prosperity to occur. Together, we will be stronger and we will come through this rocky period stronger than ever before. Again, on behalf of the Kilgore, Longview, and Tyler chambers, we appreciate your participation. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available, and it will be made available online at your chamber's website. The Longview Chamber is longviewchamber.com. For those online, you will receive an email later today with a link to listen to again or share with others. We appreciate you being with us today and have an awesome Wednesday. Take care, my friend.